Thank you.
Just me and you in here?
It says there.
You're never alone. You're never alone.
Yeah, that's right. Don't risk it.
It's a hot mic. You're never alone.
Right.
I don't think so. It looks like there are about 105 in here.
Let's see. Yeah, exactly. So let me sign in. How about you?
Deborah, I just wanted to let you know I'm here. It's Patty.
Oh, hey, Patty. It's hard to, I've got all these people. I've been waiting to get in the room for a while.
Me too.
So,
Let's see.
now, Patty, do you want to introduce yourself?
I can do that. And
Okay.
who puts up my presentation? Because it was pre-recorded.
Brian.
Brian. I feel like he's going to change his name after this conference.
No. No. He'd be all right.
I'm going to send this to, oh, where'd she go? Disappeared.
All right, Danielle, you got this. I'm going to go
Well, I'll just send it to everyone.
use the restroom. I'll be right back.
Okay. Wait, am I co-host already? Oh, I am not a co-host. Okay. I'll wait for Brian. Hello, folks. If you haven't already, go ahead and comment your name in the chat. Brian, if you are with us or you can hear us, if you can make me a co-host too, that would be fantastic. Thank you. I feel like I'm talking to the beyond. Brian. Is everybody still doing okay today?
Yep.
Good.
It's beautiful outside.
I need to go outside for a little bit today. I've been stuck in here.
Where are you?
I am in Charleston, West Virginia.
I am in Solomon's Island, Maryland.
Ooh.
It's about 70 out and balmy.
That doesn't sound too bad. Sometimes I can take a little warmth. Makes you appreciate the cool.
I love it. Anything below 72, I'm a little cold.
Well, you probably don't want to be here down here today. It's a little cool out.
I was in a few years ago in Abu Simbel, which is south of Cairo, and it was 102 degrees right on the border of Sudan. But it was dry, it was dry heat, so sweat wouldn't even come to the surface. You just had to stay hydrated, and I loved it. I felt like a lizard on a rock.
You said, "Bring on the warmth."
Yes, always.
Well, I'm glad. It looks like, let's see, Dolores, let's see, Dolores Polly Lafferty, is that you checking in with us?
Yes, it is.
All right. If you all know folks that are waiting to be admitted, please let them know. Just bear with us. I can't admit anybody just yet. We'll have to wait for Dr. Young to come back. Then she'll be able to.
Miss Peyton, I love that little bunny rabbit.
Thank you. I love Peeps and my kids keep buying them for me.
There you go. I'm on this teeny little iPad and I can only see 7 other people and myself. So I'm limited, especially with 120 plus people on here.
I'm on a little laptop, so I'm right there with you.
Okay. I just got off the phone with a friend who lives in Beckley.
Oh. That's not too far.
I know.
That's where my office is.
There you go. Perfect. Getting some locations connected now.
Hi, foster care. It's amazing what names come up, right?
Yeah, especially nowadays. I think we have had to begin to use Zoom for so many things. So sometimes it's probably just easier. Here's my
Yeah.
title.
Yep. Looks like a vacuum cleaner in the background.
I can't see theirs. There's so many people. I've lost some of the people on the second pages and so on.
Yeah. Well, I've got my core group, so that's all I care about.
Good deal.
All right, I'm back and I just admitted 58 people.
Cool.
Woo! Let's see.
Yes, Deborah, this is C5. Deborah Lee Jones, you are in C5. Hello.
Yeah. 178 so far. I'm double checking your work.
Did Brian find my presentation?
I don't know. I was in the restroom.
Oh, what do we do?
Well, if you have, well, I can't just yet. If I can become a co-host and you have the link to it, Patty, I can try to play it from my end.
I
As long
think
as you're not
he can
there.
drop it in. I'm going to
Okay.
text him. Have you texted him, Danielle?
I did.
Well,
You can text him too. He might answer you faster.
I will just call him.
Oh, I'll let you do that.
Co-host, don't become a parasite.
Oh no.
I'm the wife.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, she has a home court advantage that I
all
don't.
right.
And let's see. Oops, I closed it earlier. And again, for those who are just joining us, welcome. This is C5, Social Work Ethics with Miss Patty Nishimoto. And we'll be getting started soon. We're getting some technical things in order, but we have a couple moments. Oh, I am co-host now, I think. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Brian.
Yes, and Patty, he said he would get the video dropped in for you. So,
Awesome, thank you.
yeah.
And folks, please don't forget to mute yourselves. I'm sure we will have an opportunity to chat and get into some good conversations. But in the meantime, so we don't interrupt Patty in her presentation, please make sure you mute yourself, especially if you're having some private conversations or if you're picking out dinner. We don't want to get hungry too.
All right, it looks like he's ready to go. So,
Good afternoon. I'm Patty Nishimoto, and I'm excited to share with you all my presentation on the ethics of fostering workplace compassion. It has been a personal philosophical journey for me that started with self-compassion and self-care to a more collective view of creating a culture of compassion, particularly
Did we lose audio?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that. I thought maybe it was just me.
no, we
No.
lost. Hold on.
While we wait in just a few moments, I am going to post a link for those who want to write well wishes to Sam so that he can see everyone and the impact he's made.
Half to death driving through the hills of West Virginia and Kentucky.
I may have to present live if this is going to be an issue. No.
We're checking on your resilience.
Guess we're trying again.
We're working on it, Patty.
Okie dokie.
Mm-mm. No. You're doing great. Okay. He's still working. Hold your horses.
Patty, in the meantime, could you just tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure, I can, I'm on, okay. So basically,
She's
was-
talking like to people.
shall I stop talking?
No.
Okay, so I was born and raised in Hawaii, and at age 57, I decided to leave my home state and move to West Virginia. Woo! And that was almost 6 years ago. July 1st will make us 6 years since I've been here. And as a transplant, I absolutely love West Virginia. There are a lot of cultural similarities with the Hawaiian culture and Appalachian culture.
Mahalo.
And it's a good fit. And I kind of like dove in because I never heard about West Virginia until I decided I wanted to make a move, and have not regretted it, and have met some incredible people. As my, let's see, the first part of my presentation, the cover page says that I work at Concord University. And prior to that, I used to work at the University of Hawaii and Hawaii Pacific University. HPU was a private institution. And when you can pay a lot of money for tuition, you somewhat feel entitled. And the difference with students at Concord University is they feel privileged that they can attend college and are very grateful for the education that they're getting, and they're paying it forward into their communities as social workers. And so, yeah, that's the main difference. And one of the reasons why I moved is because I feel like self-care is really important, and I was working too hard in Hawaii. And I went from living in a beach cottage to a log house up in the mountains. And when I get out of my car, when I get home these days, I basically say, glory be to God, because I live in God's country. So how we doing? Are we ready? Not yet?
Not yet. He's working it. He had
Ooh.
to go downstairs and turn on a television because it had something about it had to have some type of connection.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's just hold tight.
All right.
And I asked him if he wanted me to stay on the phone, and he hung up. So no.
Okay.
May I ask why you picked West Virginia?
I was actually I was a director for the School of Social Work at HPU. I was recruiting for faculty, and I saw an ad for faculty at Concord. I don't know, for whatever reason, I decided to look into it and apply. And so when they invited me out for my interview, my husband came along. We stayed an extra 4 days. We drove around West Virginia because, I basically said if we were going to do this for real, I need you to also agree. So we drove around without the radio on. And by driving around West Virginia and seeing how beautiful it is, my husband and I discovered why we fell in love in the first place, just by talking in the car, for hours and hours. And I basically said, that's the kind of life I want to live, is to be a little bit more grateful and take the time to really appreciate the surroundings and what's available to us, than as opposed to constantly rushing. Being at work at 6:30 in the morning and staying until 10 o'clock at night is not the way to live. And
So now you have rabbits, raccoons, deer, squirrels, all of nature.
absolutely, bears. I've had
Yeah.
a bear run through our field. Yep.
Good.
All right.
We're going to try this again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Patty Nishimoto, and I'm
Can you
excited
hear? And there it goes again.
on the ethics of fostering workplace compassion. It has been a personal philosophical journey for me that started with self-compassion and self-care to a more collective view of creating a culture of compassion, particularly in the workplace. The objectives of the presentation is to acknowledge that we would do so much better as workers, if our work environment fosters compassion to its employees. I'll be sharing with you examples, and I saved enough time at the end of the presentation so that you can also share your examples and experiences with workplace compassion. So let's start with our NASW Code of Ethics. When we talk about our Code of Ethics, we typically focus on our ethical responsibilities to our clients and to our communities. Sometimes we remember that we also have an ethical responsibility to our colleagues and to our profession. So today's presentation, I want you to think about yourself. I want you to think about your colleagues and about our profession as I share with you the social work values that apply to challenging social injustices, such as, but not limited to, racial hate crimes, discrimination against the LGBTQI+ communities, to persons with disabilities, people who are suffering with addiction or mental health conditions, because social injustices can also be experienced by us as workers. We also have to keep in mind our social work value in terms of respecting the dignity and worth of others. It's not just, with the clients that we work with. It applies to our colleagues, as well as how we as social workers value the importance of human relationships and our professional integrity in terms of behaving in a manner that is trustworthy. Social workers are diverse, are we not? We come from different cultures, have different experiences that may even have led us to this field. For example, some of us are wounded healers, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that we are survivors of discrimination, of oppression, poverty, addiction, mental health conditions, and so forth. And, maybe with these personal experiences, we chose our field because we want to pay it forward after having been supported and helped by social workers before us. Which is why we need to understand the nature of social diversity as well as oppression, and as they relate to us and to our colleagues, and how it impacts our personal values and beliefs, and as well as our biases. I also want to emphasize that our ethical responsibility to each other in terms of treating each other with respect and dignity, which means that we have to acknowledge that we all have limitations, but we also understand as social workers that people have the capacity to grow, right, and thrive. And so instead of ridiculing someone's limitations or, um, you know, especially those that are just learning, how to be social workers at this point, they're new to the field, is coming from a place of being cooperative and responsive to encourage growth opportunities. And for those of us that are supervisors, mentors, consultants, educators, trainers, it's also our ethical responsibility to share our knowledge and our skills, and to provide, constructive support in a manner that is respectful of our colleagues' dignity and worth. We need to share our kuleana. Again, it's a Hawaiian word for expertise, and which means that according to, it's even stated in our code of ethics that we should consider becoming field instructors and task supervisors, trainers, and even conference presenters. Finally, we have to have the ethical responsibility to our profession to foster compassion in the workplace, be able to walk the walk and talk the talk with each other. Again, the ethics of fostering workplace compassion impacts our clients that we work with, absolutely. It impacts our community and society at large. It promotes the condition that encourages respect for culture and for social diversity. It also prevents and eliminates exploitation of and discrimination against any person or groups of people or class. One of the reasons why I really started thinking about this is because I think sometimes we forget that we're not just social workers, we're human beings. And we have been impacted by traumatic events that have occurred, recently in our lives. I have examples here of traumatic events. Many of us remember, the 9/11 attack, right? Even though, I was in Hawaii, I was still impacted. I was barely able to function for weeks. Across, the globe, for example, right now, we're all experiencing, the COVID-19 pandemic. And, there's racial and spiritual hate crimes going on. And then we also then had the January 6th insurrection. There's also natural disasters across the country and around the world. And this is on top of the traumatic, events, collective trauma that we experience as social workers when we work with our clients. It all gives us pause. When these events happen, when we see it on the news, we stop, we pause. And what do? We re-examine what we take for granted oftentimes. We re-examine our assumptions about our safety, our well-being, our values, our beliefs, and also really critical this day and age, our own mental health. I mean, how many of us are struggling right now, with depression and anxiety since the pandemic? How many of us are, have suffered or struggling with the insecurities just because of the color of our skin or our race or ethnicity, or maybe even our religion or spiritual beliefs? And how many of us are working in a toxic work environment? It doesn't take much for any of us to recognize that there are some workplace environments that are toxic. You know, here is a list of some of them. They're not extensive, but a few, and maybe some agencies only have a couple of these. I'm not sure. But, you know, do we work in an agency that tolerates bullying? And bullying can come in a form of intellectual bullying, for example, or being uncivil to each other. Maybe, you know, we work in an environment that's abusive, where there's yelling at each other, or there's a lack of supervision, or, you know, there's limited empathy for workers who may have some personal um, heartaches, you know, in their lives. What about, you know, being critical of each other rather than celebrating, you know, our achievements, or even working against each other in terms of competition, where there's, you know, one up, I can do better than you, so to speak. And the hostility that may come in the form of jokes, for example. Implicit discrimination and oppression. And what about our caseloads? You know, are they at a high level? And then more common than not, it's interesting, where we actually may be working in a work environment that's toxic because we don't know how to resolve conflict or miscommunication. So think about it, you know, think about other examples that you know of, and doesn't have to be in your agency. You just know that it happens, and list them in the chat box so that we can respond. So what about us? You know, how does, I want you to think for a second about this in terms of how are you being supported by your agency, by your supervisors or coworkers, you know, in terms of what you do on a daily basis, you know, for work, or how do they support you when, you know, sometimes, you know, it's hard at home as well. Okay, so jot them down so that we can talk about that later at the end of our presentation. So now, if anyone has, you know, had a difficult time thinking about how they're supported, the reasons that we need to consider consider our well-being is because of possible burnout. Maybe we haven't had the opportunity to address burnout within our organization, right? And or is it because we're experiencing compassion fatigue, which is a state of significant depletion and exhaustion of our source of compassion, where we're, you know, we're always giving, and you know, in response to our clients and their situation. You know, my daughter wanted her and I to get a similar tattoo of the giving tree. And I'm not sure if any of you remember that book. It's a really good children's book. At any rate, I thought, you know, initially that was a great idea. I was all for it until I realized, well, wait a minute. I don't want to end up being a tree stump, you know, with nothing else to give because I've given it all. And isn't that what happens if all we do is give, that we end up being a tree stump? That's kind of sad. So what do we do to address burnout and self-compassion? Well, hey, I've done it. We emphasize the need for self-care. You know, and in order to take care of ourselves, we also have to have self-compassion. So the message was, you know, if we experience burnout and compassion fatigue, the message is that we're responsible to change ourselves. We're responsible for, you know, having to change our situation and our mindset. And we're advised to meditate, exercise, learn how to breathe. Maybe we were told that we have to establish a better time management schedule, practice being able to say no. And, all of a sudden, I was going like, wait, really? We're social workers. Where is our support? Why doesn't the support apply to us? Well, let's look back at the concept of compassion a little bit more. It's a social construct, and it was derived from self-care practices. And, if we have self-compassion, we practice self-care, it builds a sense of resilience. But we also know, in terms of what we've learned in social work, what's central is that self-compassion is a social work practice. In other words, being kind to ourselves and maintaining a mindfulness mindset. The acts of compassion is response able, the ability to respond. Acts of compassion facilitates the ability to thrive, to grow, and to build resilience. It also involves touching and being touched by others. And I don't mean, being physically touched with hugs and a pat on the shoulder. It means being touched emotionally and socially. For example, celebrating achievements of others. I had a coworker that, for example, just earned her PhD, and, shout outs, congratulations and all of that. I had another colleague that just purchased a house. And again, what a celebration. But it's also the ability to mourn the loss of someone's loved one. It can be a pet, it can be a mother, a child, or anyone. And it could also be acknowledging someone's fear. For example, the fear of presenting for the very first time at a local or national presentation. I remember, the first time I presented, which was, ancient years ago, and how terrified I was. And I had a coworker sit me down and say, I hear you. Let's practice. And, then I learned how not to wear my glasses so I couldn't see the audience and, things like that. But someone took the time to, walk me through it, which was absolutely wonderful. So when we think about self-compassion, I like to think about what Brene Brown wrote in her book. And she said, I am worthy now, not if, not when. We are worthy of love and belonging now, right this minute, as is. In other words, we don't have to be perfect. So our learned response, again, is self-care, which is the process of implementing certain strategies so that would promote healthy functioning and our well-being, physically, psychologically, spiritually, socially, as well as professionally. And that's a really good start, is it not? Well, self-care and self-compassion is not enough. It's a good start. We need to feel seen. We need to, and feel known by others. We need to feel less alone and have a sense of belonging. And then we also need to feel connected and supported by others. Why? Because we matter. We matter. The often neglected, concept is mattering. Mattering is the feeling that we as social workers have when we sense that the agency, our supervisor, our colleagues are interested in us and value our contribution to the organization and to our profession. It is a sense of belonging and feeling appreciated by others. So self-care versus culture of compassion really comes from the concept of individualism and collectivism. So self-care, is kind of supported by the individual mindset, because it's saying you as the individual is responsible for you taking care of yourself, as opposed to a collective mindset where it's everyone's responsibility to care for each other. And what I also learned, in terms of my journey about creating a culture of compassion, is that individualism actually goes against the grain of Appalachian values. There are some fundamental cultural values between Appalachia and the mainstream America, don't get me wrong. But we also need to appreciate that the people who live in Appalachia are a subculture. Like, Hawaii, even though it's part of America, they have their own subcultures. So Ty talked about, the values that people from Appalachia have. They have a strong, and I'm, not repeating anything new. Everyone knows this, in our field. People in Appalachia have a strong family and kinship, relationship. They value cooperation and collaboration. They're interdependent on members of their family and the community. And while this is becoming less and less, there is still, limited involvement with external communities. And then finally, people who live in Appalachia look out for the well-being of, of its members, and they celebrate their members and their group's accomplishment, and they value, harmony. Hence, organizational compassion needs to have a pro-social social work environment that extends to its employees. By doing so, we'll increase its commitment to the people that we serve and to our community, but also demonstrates the responsibility and commitment and respect towards workers like us. There are 3 elements of compassion: noticing, feeling, and responding. So now let's apply it to the workplace compassion. So noticing, it requires being open and receptive to what is going on in our agency and with each other. It's the ability to pay attention to each other's emotions, as well as the ability to read the subtle clues in our daily interactions with our colleagues. How do we do this? It's slowing down. It's taking the time to chat with one another. Creating time, like going on, lunch break together, and while having lunch, don't talk about work. Feeling. Feeling is a social emotion and compassion that means to suffer with, which ranges from feeling concerned for others or, to more complex emotions. It's also very similar to empathy. It involves taking the attitude of the other person and seek the situation from the other's perspective, which is our ability to engage in reflective listening beyond content. And then finally, responding. It's the actions that we take to alleviate pain and suffering, or the actions we take to helping another person live through their pain and suffering. So when we ask people, our colleagues, how are you doing? Take the time to listen, because the question isn't a salutation. It's wanting to know, how are you doing right this moment? Okay. Hopefully after the pandemic, we'll be able to give each other hugs again. It's taking extra time to chat a little bit longer when someone needs that time. It's the ability to get out of the office and go for a walk, during our break, and take a coworker with you. What are some of the other ways you can demonstrate that you're thinking about a coworker, but respecting their privacy? And you would know how to respect them, if you took the time to also get to know your coworkers, right? So think about that, and you can share at the end of this presentation. So in a culture of compassion in the workplace, it is a process where the agency members collectively notice, feel, and respond to the pain within their organization. It also requires mindfulness and carefulness, and it can be demonstrated by the leaders of our organizations, including, for example, the board of directors. I'll give you an example. When I was a CEO for a company and I had, over 300 employees, we celebrated often, people's achievements. Man, I went to so many birthday parties, their children's weddings, and baptismal parties, and things of the sort. We had monthly birthday celebrations where people, would bring potluck because they love to cook. In another company that I worked with, we would have periodic breakfasts together. We'd show up super early, before the work day, and sit down. And again, it was potluck, and it was just to, set a collaborative mood before the workday began. Another way that we celebrate each other is, a coworker recently, she provided little gift bags to each of us, and they were very individualized. And, when I opened up my little bag, I knew, number one, who it was from, but also the things that were in my bag, was a confirmation that this person knew me. And that was so much more, I think, appreciated because it was so individualized. And, and again, didn't have to do it, but it was very nice. So, again, workplace compassion doesn't happen by accident. It must be strategic, and it needs to be reflected, for example, in the agency's mission statement, its policies, its physical work environment, and it has to be modeled by leaders of the organization, by its administrators. The Children's Home Society, for example, in Huntington, it's located in a house, and it doesn't look like a typical office. And not only is it inviting to its clients, but it's inviting for its workers, that want to show up at work because, again, it's just really good vibes. Workplace compassion also is created by making it okay to talk about feelings and emotions. Again, we know as social workers, mental health, has been a stigma. We're trying to, change that attitude. And we need to do it for ourselves because, we're not immune to, feeling depressed, feeling anxious as social workers. So, making it, again, okay to talk about feelings and emotions. We also need to be present. And what I mean by that is we need to be available, respectful, and courteous to our coworkers. so that they'll, they'll know that they can trust us in confidence. When one of the agencies I work for, I will, when I came to work, I came early. I would make coffee for the office. I'd pour me a cup, and then I would walk to everyone's office and work area, because everyone worked at a different time and all of that. And, I would say good morning and I would welcome them to work. And it gave employees the opportunity, it was an invitation to share with me with whatever they wanted to. But it was also a message that I wanted to bestow on them, is to say that I'm present, I'm available, for you if you need to talk. My office door, for example, was a glass door. It wasn't a solid door, so that again, people, it was inviting for people to come and talk with me. Other ways in which you can be present is create a buddy system, particularly for new employees, so that they can check in with you. For example, if they have any questions, you can check in with them, to offer ways in which, they can learn about the job and the policies and the procedures and so forth. This one, in terms of having regular meetings, we all have regular meetings. We do discuss issues and conflicts and challenges. We do this individually, we do this in group supervisions, we have departmental, meetings, unit meetings. But one of the things that maybe we need to extend is also what we practice in group work. And it's creating ground rules in terms of teaching people how to address conflict and miscommunication, because not everyone knows how to do that. Some people don't like conflict. They don't like bringing things up. So how do you create a safe place for everyone to be able to share without feeling guilty or feeling like they're going to be attacked? Okay. The other thing that we can do on a regular basis is evaluate our level of burnout and passion fatigue. We can use the professional quality of life scale. I have a copy of it that will go with, a hard copy of my slide presentation if people are interested. But again, I think people should be able to do, a self-evaluation so that they can do a check-in and maybe share it with their supervisor and says, wow, I didn't realize, but this is happening. And, I need support in, X, Y, and Z. So the other thing that I think that's really, really important is using positive reinforcement, acknowledgments, and celebrations. One of the things that, we used to do is handwrite thank you cards, what I called mahalo cards. And they are handwritten, which also gives the impression that you took the time to individualize the thank you notes. I wasn't the only one that wrote those cards. I extended it to all of the employees, all 300 of them. And their instruction was that when they send out thank you notes, notice the small things that your coworker does, not the big events, not the big accomplishments that, we can all celebrate together. Because if we wait for the big stuff, the thank yous will be far in between. But if we notice the small things, those notes will come, will flourish. And when I instituted that idea, it was amazing because people didn't throw away the thank you the thank you notes that they received. They were pinned all over their workstation. You know, there was a reminder that they were appreciated by their coworkers. We can also, you know, nominate our coworkers for awards. We can have certificates of accomplishments. We can give gift certificates. This is an idea, you know, that came from a board of directors. So that employees know that their board of directors are not far removed. They're not just talking to their executive directors, but they know who the employees are. Okay, there are other ideas. So looking to reduce workload. Everyone complains, you know, of our high caseload, right? What about addressing the safety concerns, you know, within our organization? Providing and conducting training. Also decorating our office so that it's stress-free. So, you know, for example, practicing feng shui, which is getting rid of clutter. Play relaxing and soothing music. Maybe create a break room that is, you know, separate from, you know, the staff kitchen. And using humor. I love humor. You know, when you're smiling and you're laughing, it's really hard to be angry, for example, or be sad because you're smiling, right? Okay. Again, these are just some examples. So my question to you is, could you be the conduit for your agency to begin to facilitate a discussion so that everyone can brainstorm and provide ideas about how you all can foster a culture of compassion within your workplace? So I'm going to share with you 2 pages of references. Again, you're not probably going to be able to read it, but it's available. And then I'll stop the recording and we can chat live. So this is the first page of my references. Ooh, there's a lot. Second page, you'll know that I have the professional quality of life scale on there as well. But let me stop the presentation, stop the recording, and then we can chat.
Well, I actually was kind of nervous about only having an hour. There are many times where I present and I go over, and I was pleasantly surprised that I had enough time so that you all could then share some of the things that may have sparked while I was talking in my presentation. One of the things that I noticed, a message from Marilyn, and she wrote about being the only social worker in the agency. And so that feels kind of isolating in terms of, you know, having difficulties sharing. Are there other people that want to share some of the ways in which they can foster compassion in their workplace or have experienced compassion in the workplace?
I will share. My name's Kathy. I am a professor at West Virginia Northern Community College. And a few years ago, we started something called the Positivity Wall. And so in each of our buildings on our campus, we have a nice bulletin board that is called the Positivity Wall. And it says, please leave a comment or a short note complimenting someone or giving them credit for having done something kind or helpful or what you appreciate about them. And so it's as good as the thank you notes, but in a way, I think it's even better because it's public, you know, and everyone can say, oh, so-and-so said something really nice about this employee or that employee. And then they mention that to that person. And so it kind of pays it forward and carries it on. So it's kind of a neat thing that we started a few years ago.
That's awesome, Kathy. Thank you for sharing. Are there other ideas or practices already in place?
Yes. My boss this year, she does something nice all the time. And I'm the social worker at the homeless shelter. So I supervise all the shelter aides. But she gave out certificates of appreciation to everybody. And she had it in a folder, and it's like you were graduating. It was in a folder, and everybody that got one was so excited. They just like they got a candy bar. They were so excited. And I told her, I thought that was very, very nice that she went to do the work as a boss, to go to thank everybody, and they really appreciate it. I tell my staff thank you all the time. Y'all doing a good job, because that motivates them. That motivates them to do a good job. So I tell them I appreciate them. Thank you for everything, and so that keeps them kind of motivated up. Which I feel good. It's nice to pat somebody sometimes to make them feel like they're worth being worth something on your job, because sometimes they feel it's just their job and they just come to work. But when you say thank you, that has a whole different thing. Thank you for the work you do. That makes somebody feel really great. So that's what we normally do in the job I work at.
Thank you, Bunny. I actually want Jerry to actually say out loud what you wrote in the chat box, honey, about organizational culture.
Yeah,
Are you there?
okay. I hope I've
There you
managed
go.
to unmute.
Yes.
Yeah, I had the same job for 88 semesters.
Uh-oh.
Stayed there because I felt deeply valued, and the organizational culture of the Department of Social Work was very much supportive of family first and supporting us in our family roles. And that was never a question. It was like, of course, you have to be concerned about your sick child or whatever. And recently I was in another workshop, and I feel like this sort of wraps up what the attitude was, which is asking people, what's strong with you, as opposed to what's wrong with you. And we had, even the Council on Social Work Education, who in my view can sometimes be stinkers, commended us for our family model of management.
My first child was born with special needs, and I got to bring him to work with me. Family first, I mean, and we, again, why is it that sometimes we forget that, with the people that we work with as colleagues? We extend it to our, our clients, but we forget us.
Right.
Come on, wake up. Other examples.
I'll share. I think mine might be a little over the top, but I have an incredible practice manager. And I've worked for the organization for just over 3 years now. Within the first year of working for them, I met my children, who I have since adopted. And within 2 years of working for the company, had a pretty major surgery. And that practice manager was by my side through the whole thing, like sent a catered meal to my house for my family after my surgery so everybody could eat, came to our party for our adoption. I mean, it was just above and beyond. Again, I know not a lot of agencies have the resources for reaching out catered meals for their employees, but it meant so much to us and our family to know that I worked for a place that really treats us like family.
So Lena, you're raising your hand. You want to speak up?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt. One of the kindest things that I have ever seen employees do for somebody else, and I don't even know if this is even still possible, but my husband used to work at the Department of Health and Human Resources, and they had a policy that you could donate your vacation time to, to other people who were experiencing difficulty, and they didn't have the time to take off, and you knew that they were going to run into financial problems. And anyway, it was just really an incredible thing to see employees do that for their coworkers.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. And Faye, I forgot to say thank you too. One of the things I do want to say, Faye, is that it going beyond, if it becomes the norm, right? Wouldn't that be so much more appreciated as well? Are there other examples of how your coworkers celebrate you or you celebrating your coworkers?
Yes, I have a boss. I recently changed jobs last June, and my boss, this was the first time I had a male boss. And I also found out I was pregnant when I took the job with twins. And I was very scared if my video's on, you see one of them right now, he won't lay down. But I was very nervous to tell him because, you always feel as a woman when you find out you're pregnant and, you first take a job that may be like something in your 90 days. Not that they could, but something else. But he was one of the most supportive bosses, other than the one I had at my job in West Virginia. He was one of the most supportive bosses I've ever had. And I was really a little shocked because he was a male, but he was so family oriented because he had 4 kids. And I mean, he even went as far as just to tell me like, I can still now work from home days that I like, maybe have challenges with childcare. He's just very supportive. So it was just really nice for me to see as a woman that having a male boss really take the time to really understand and not, be misogynistic or anything. So that's kind of my example of that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Others?
Patty, it's at the I'm at the Herschel Woody Williams VAMC in Huntington, and we're easing into whole health and trying to embrace it. So every Monday morning, hospital wide, we do mindfulness meditations virtually, and of course we have EAP services. So we're trying to address that stuff. And one thing, I don't know if you said it today, but I've heard you say in other trainings. I don't know if you made it up or where you got it, but a variation on the golden rule: not treating people the way we want to be treated, treating people the way they want to be treated. And I've quoted you on that. I've always loved that. I think it's very meaningful.
Well, thank you. I was in your presentation earlier and I was like, oh my God, he said my name. So thank you.
Patty, we have about 5 more minutes.
All right, thank you.
Five more minutes.
Yes. And again, in terms of treating people the way they want to be treated, it's really getting to know them personally. And I think, Bunny, you kind of started in saying, you're constantly thanking people for a great job. And so I want to kick it up a notch. If you all can, do that for your coworkers and people that you supervise. Again, coming from a place of noticing the simple things, the things that are almost unnoticeable, and that catches people's attention. So great job. What is the great job? Identify it, name it, and then people will thrive, I think, even more so, because again, it's the whole notion of being noticed. I think that's just about the time that we have, and I can't thank you enough. Next time I'm going to do this live as opposed to recording my video. Because one of the things I thrive is, having the conversation with people, like in my class and doing presentations like this. You all are absolutely awesome. And I look forward next year to seeing you all in person. Please be there. I can't wait. And enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you again. See ya.
If you haven't commented yet, please do so, and we'll see you a little bit later. Enjoy your break.
Hey, Danielle.
Yes.
I'm done for the day, so I have to go get Birdie, so I'm going to log off.
Okay. Hey, Dr. Young, this is Kentia. I wanted to tell you hello before you get off.
Girl, I heard you talking. Twins?
Yes, twin boys.
Oh my goodness. How are you?
I am great. I'm in North Carolina now.
Well, you look fantastic.
Thank you. I'm
and
working
happy.
Thank you. But I heard you say you got to pick up your daughter. How old is Birdie?
Birdie is 10.
Good. Oh my goodness.
I know. She's
I
such
just
a
wanted
big
to tell you
girl.
hello. Say hi. Say hi.
Oh my goodness.
This is Emerson. I named them Edison and Emerson.
I love it.
Thank
I
you.
love it. I am
You have
so
a-
happy for you.
Thank you. You have a good day, Dr. Young.
You too. It's good to see you.
You too.
And Danny, I want your voice.
Thank you. I've got
Great
a lot of
mom.
practice. Thank you for flying, Charleston Airlines.